This is a DGHradio.com News and Information Network special report. Okay, something huge is brewing in the Caribbean. I mean, we are talking about a situation that feels like it's on the absolute brink of war. You've got a massive U.S. military deployment squaring off against Venezuela, which, get this, is backed by Russia and China. So let's break down exactly how we got here and, more importantly, what could happen next. Right now, in the waters of the southern Caribbean, a military buildup is underway. And honestly, it's reached a level of tension that we just haven't seen in decades. The United States has put together this huge naval and air presence, and it's parked right on Venezuela's doorstep. And look, the situation is, well, it's incredibly tense. We're not just talking about a few ships here. This is the largest American show of force in Latin America since the Cold War. Let that sink in for a second. To put that into perspective for you, this is a scale of military activity that we just haven't seen in this part of the world since the days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's a really big deal. So what does this force actually look like? Well, the scale is just immense. We're talking about roughly 10,000 U.S. military personnel now operating in the wider Caribbean theater. That is a significant and, a very highly visible deployment. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the kind of naval power involved. I mean, we're talking about a full carrier strike group. It's led by the USS Gerald R. Ford. That's the largest aircraft carrier in the entire world. And it's not alone, not by a long shot. It's got destroyers, a cruiser, even a nuclear-powered attack submarine with it. Then you look to the skies, and you've got strategic bombers and the most advanced F-35 fighters. It's a picture of overwhelming force. The flashpoint for all of this is centered right around Trinidad and Tobago, which is just 11 kilometers from Venezuela. A U.S. warship recently docked there for so-called joint exercises. Well, as you can imagine, Caracas immediately condemned this. They called it a dangerous and hostile provocation and accused their neighbor of becoming, and these are their words, the aircraft carrier of the U.S. empire. So how did we even get here? How did we arrive at this precipice? Let's take a look back at the road that led to this confrontation. Yeah, this definitely didn't just happen overnight. This is the culmination of years of breakdowns. It really kicked off with heavy U.S. sanctions in 2019, then a very contested election in 2024. After that, U.S. policy just took a sharp, aggressive turn. As you can see right here on the timeline, by January 2025, Washington wasn't hiding it anymore. They openly adopted a regime change policy. And just a few months later, by October, the CIA was given the green light for covert ops inside Venezuela. You can imagine, that sent tensions absolutely skyrocketing. And that shift, that move to an open regime change policy, that's really a crucial turning point. So what's the official reason for this massive military buildup? What are we being told? Officially, this entire operation is being framed as a counter-narcotics mission, a war on narco-terrorism. But a lot of observers, and certainly the Venezuelan government, they see a very different motive. They see a military pressure campaign that's aimed squarely at forcing regime change in Caracas. And under this anti-drug banner, the U.S. has already used lethal force. We know of at least 14 strikes that have been carried out on suspected narcotics boats in the region, and that's resulted in over 50 deaths. These kinds of actions have dramatically, and I mean dramatically, raised the temperature of this whole situation. Now, what's really interesting is how analysts are viewing this justification. One expert just put it bluntly, saying, "This is about regime change. Narcotics are merely a pretext." And, this view gets some backing from U.S. intelligence data, which shows Venezuela's actually a pretty minor player in the cocaine trade. Most of it originates from other countries. This conflict isn't just between two nations anymore. It's rapidly turning into a global chessboard, with major world powers picking their sides. Venezuela is not standing alone in this. Not at all. This table kind of lays it all out. You've got Russia and China providing really strong diplomatic and material support. On the other side, the U.S. has allies like Trinidad and Tobago providing key logistical support. It's this clear division that takes a regional dispute and turns it into something much, much more dangerous. And Russia's support has been very tangible. Just as a new strategic partnership was being signed, this Russian cargo plane, a type known for hauling military supplies and linked to the former Wagner mercenary group, it landed right in Caracas. The message there was unmistakable. China, meanwhile, has been crystal clear in its diplomatic opposition. Its foreign ministry is publicly warning against the U.S. military buildup, framing it as a direct violation of sovereignty and a threat to regional peace. They're basically urging Washington to promote security, not military coercion. So all of this brings us back to the most urgent question of the moment. Where is all of this heading? With military forces on high alert, operating so close to each other, you have to ask, is a military confrontation now unavoidable? Well, the arguments for why a conflict could erupt are alarming. You have forces operating within kilometers of each other. That creates a huge risk of a miscalculation, an accident. Venezuela is on high alert because they fear a false flag attack, a manufactured incident designed to look like they started it. And they've reportedly mobilized millions of reservists, vowing to meet any invasion with a popular insurrection. But on the other hand, there are some powerful reasons why a full-scale invasion might be averted. Some experts think this is more psychological warfare than a true prelude to war, a big bluff designed to spook Maduro's inner circle and maybe trigger a coup from within. Also, some analysts argue the current U.S. force is actually too small for a successful long-term occupation, and the cost of a long, drawn-out guerrilla war would be just immense. So, what are the stakes here? What happens if this tips over the edge? Well, a war would have absolutely devastating consequences, far, far beyond Venezuela's borders. We'd be looking at a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, severe regional destabilization, a major shock to global oil markets, and the very real risk of a direct confrontation between the world's great powers. All this leaves the entire region, and frankly the world, at a critical juncture. The Caribbean has suddenly become one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the entire planet. The question now is whether diplomacy can somehow find a way to de-escalate this, or if the world is about to witness a new and potentially catastrophic conflict.